Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. 5090 O-Level Biology, November 15, paper 1-2. And this is going to discuss question 22 to question 40. Some very important questions have been coming in these papers, and we need to discuss these in detail. Question 22. What is the function of a sensory neuron transmitting impulses from receptor to spinal cord? So it had to be receptor to spinal cord, or receptor to the brain. Like eyes is just going to go to the brain, it's not going to go from the retina, is going to go to the brain. So you have to know sensory neurons have a receptor at one end, and the sensory neuron carries impulses to the spinal cord. Of course, this information all goes to the brain, so they connect, the receptors connect the spinal cord, and the sensory neuron connects that. Question 23. What does the hypothalamus control? Body temperature, thermoregulation, and osmoregulation as well. So body temperature, the others are all wrong. Insulin secretion and the rate of breathing, that's more on the, this is medulla, and insulin secretion is of course not nothing to do with the hypothalamus. It's just the pancreas controls that. Then question 24, the diagram shows the main muscles and bones of the arm, and you can see this is the humerus, this is the humerus, this is the radius, this is the ulna. It forms this U-shaped structure here, so this is the ulna, and you have to remember U for ulna. And then this of course is the front of the arm, so this has to be the biceps muscle, and this has to be, the X has to be the back, so it's the triceps muscle, which is also called the extensor muscle. The biceps is called the flexor muscle. So what happens when muscle X contracts? Yes, the lower arm is extended. That's why triceps is also called the extensor muscle. So it's extended. So this is how we had to do this part. So you have to understand the English, the biological English. Then question 25. What are the causes, signs and symptoms and treatments of diabetes mellitus? So basically the insulin is not being produced by the damaged pancreas cells, and the signs and symptoms are sugar in the urine, or you can say glucose in the urine, and the treatment is insulin injection. These are of course exact points from the syllabus which they have picked up and they've given it to you. So knowing the syllabus is a very important part of your practice for the MCQ exam. In question 26, foods can be made by treating milk in different ways. Bacteria are added, the milk is acidified, the milk proteins are coagulated. Which process occurs in both cheese and yogurt production? Now it's all the three of them. In both of them we add bacteria, and in all of them the milk is acidified, and lactic acid is produced because the lactase used by the bacteria, and this results in the coagulation of the milk protein casein. So this is the same in all the three. Then question 27, an ocean is polluted by an oil spill. An ocean is polluted by an oil spill. What is least likely? So the rest of them are all most likely. So which is least likely to speed up the rate of decomposition of oil by microorganisms. So rate of decomposition is going to increase by aerobic conditions. Yes, aerobic respiration releases more energy. Mixing by wave action again incorporates air, and spraying the surface of the sea with warm water is going to increase the temperature, so more enzyme activity of the microorganism enzymes. Now, presence of salt water is least likely to speed up the rate of decomposition. So this is how you read to yourself. Is aerobic conditions least likely? Is mixing by wave action least likely? Is spraying the surface of the sea with warm water least likely? So you see, you've got to think of ways how to read these questions so that you can then all the information that you have can actually come out, and you can answer the question in an appropriate manner and not lose this 1 mark of that MCQ exam. Then coming to question number 28, now this has been mentioned in the exam report, and the exam report is not very happy. Most candidates interpreted this decreased reaction time as meaning slower reactions. So the diagram shows the label from a bottle of gin 75, whatever, 40% alcohol by volume, and what will happen during the next few hours after a person drinks a large amount of gin. So their judgment of distance will improve, not their reaction time will decrease. That means it will take lesser time to react to a situation. Now think what happens when people are drunk. They're drunk driving accidents. So say it takes them 10 seconds to react and apply the brakes. Now it's going to take 11 seconds for them to apply the brake, and they're going to hit that person. The person is going to be either be injured or killed. So their reaction time will decrease. No, their reaction time will increase because they will take longer to react to a situation. They will take longer. Alcohol results in a lot of drunk driving accidents. So they will take longer to react to a situation. They're driving, they need to apply brakes. They need to apply brakes and normally do it in 10 seconds. Now they will take 15 seconds and they'll hit the car or they'll hit the tree or they'll hit the person crossing the road. Their urine output will decrease. So that was all wrong. Their muscle control will be reduced. What happens during the next few hours? So their muscle control will be reduced. Coming to question number 29. Now this was a big question being asked on WhatsApp. And it says the diagram shows changes in the appearance of a leaf over a period of time as it lies on the damp ground. And so on day 1, say it was like this. On day 3, it was like this. On day 4, it was like this. On day 5, it was like this. So the diagram shows changes in the appearance of a leaf over a period of time as it lies on the damp ground. Which type of organism is most likely to cause these changes? And of course, the students discussing it was whether it was decomposer or herbivore. And I thought to myself, how good or bad the biology is of these students who are discussing this question. Is which type of organism is most likely to cause these changes? How could it be a herbivore? A herbivore is like a sheep or a cow that is going to just chew up this leaf within seconds. And this leaf is lying there, and how it is appearance in its shape is the same, and slowly it is developing these tiny holes in it, and then the holes are becoming bigger, and then slowly the whole leaf is the edges are all becoming frayed. Now how could a herbivore be an answer to this? I mean, I just don't understand. If you tomorrow, next week or the week after we're having Eid, and you see these Qurbani animals that we bring, and just look at them when they're eating the grass. Do they eat it in such a cute manner that they just leave the holes and the holes remain, and then after a day again they still pick up and leave a few more holes, punch a few holes out of it? I'm sorry, you've never seen a sheep eating grass or eating leaves. They're not going to. How can it be a herbivore? I could only smile at them if I could look at them and say, I mean, how could this be a herbivore? Then coming to question number 30. The diagram shows some stages in the nitrogen cycle. Which arrow represents the action of nitrogen fixing bacteria? So the arrow has to come out of atmospheric nitrogen, and it has to go to plant protein. So there weren't many arrows coming out of atmospheric nitrogen, and there's only one, and the answer to that was D. Then question 31. Now question 31, which method of malarial control is effective against both adult and larval forms of the malaria? Adult flies away. Larval form is in the water. So you have to understand is that adult is, you can spray Morton, like we have Morton insecticide spray, we spray it inside the building, so it will kill the adult mosquitoes. We don't have the larvae inside our homes. So spraying oil on standing water will only kill the larvae, and draining swamps will kill the larvae and the pupa and the eggs, and covering standing water, larvae, pupa, eggs. So if you don't know the life cycle of mosquito, Then, of course, you don't know it. Mosquito lay their eggs in stagnant water, and then the eggs hatch out and comes out the larvae, and then the larva becomes the pupa, and then the pupa becomes the adult, and the adult mosquito flies away. So it was a difficult, it was a trick question as far as I'm concerned, just to see how well you've understood this chapter or not. Question 32 is again mentioned in the exam report, so it was a difficult question. It says some candidates chose option A, thinking that energy availability increases along the food chain. Now, the diagram shows a food way to which pair of animals is the greatest amount of energy available. Greatest amount of energy available, you see, what is the syllabus point? Energy decreases as we go along the food chain. So primary consumers have the most energy, and then secondary consumers have less and less and less, and so on. So the sheep and the wool, you see, grass is the producer, that's got all the energy. Now the sheep and the wool are the primary consumers, then the fox and the hawk are the secondary consumer. So as we go along the food chain, energy is decreasing. So to which pair of animals is the greatest amount of energy available? So it had to be the primary consumer, which was the sheep and the wool. Then question 33, again another question being discussed on one of our groups. Some effects of deforestation are listed. These are all effects of deforestation: less absorption of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, desertification, release of carbon from the soil, and decaying food by the action of microorganisms. So it is the microorganisms respiring and releasing carbon dioxide. Soil dryness means water, there's no roots, so there's nothing holding the soil together. Then flooding, landslides, and soil erosion. Now it says which effects contribute to causing climate change. Now climate change will only be because of greenhouse gases. Now the greenhouse gases are here and here, so it had to be 1 and 3. Climate change. So that's why the answer was A. Climate change means more the glaciers melting, the earth becoming warmer. This is a climate change. So if you didn't know that, if you don't know the chapter on pollution very well, you couldn't have done this question at all. Then of course comes the question 34, which is again very difficult. It's mentioned in the exam report. Some candidates confuse the pollen grain with the male nucleus. What passes down a pollen tube after pollination? So let's just revise this very quickly. This is the stigma, this is the style, and this is the ovary, and the pollen grain lands on it, and then it releases enzymes and it digests a path, and inside this there is the male gamete nucleus, and then it releases enzymes and it develops a pathway which is called the pollen tube, and this pathway is sort of passes through the style and reaches the ovule here. So we have the ovule here, and it enters the ovule. Inside the ovule, of course, we have the female gamete cell. And what is going to travel in it, what passes down a pollen tube, is this male nucleus, not the whole. So the male nucleus is going to travel down and then finally reach the female gamete cell and fuse with the female gamete cell to form the diploid zygote. So you have to be very clear about what passes down a pollen tube. Some students confused it, thinking that the pollen grain actually travels down the pollen tube. No, this is the pollen grain on top, and this does not move through the pollen tube. No, it doesn't move. It's only the male nucleus which moves through the pollen tube and reaches the female nucleus and fuses with it in the ovule to form the diploid zygote. So basically, I always feel the children who don't really know the answers are those who do not know the actual biology of that chapter. And it's not the reading of the question, it's actually your understanding of biology, which has to be very, very very properly understood from the book, from the syllabus, and combining both of them and understanding the chapter very thoroughly. Question 35, the diagram shows the broad bean seed, part of it has been cut away to show the internal structure. So we've got cotyledons, vesta, radical, plumule. Which parts make up the complete embryo? It's only the radical, plumule, cotyledons only. Testa is not part of the embryo. So radical, plumule and cotyledons. Testa was wrong. Cotyledons we missed out here. Radical only is wrong. Then coming to question number 36. Human gametes are different from each other. Which information about male gametes is correct? So male gametes are small, they're produced in millions, and they can swim. So that was easy. I don't think this was a very difficult part of the question. Then question 37, again it's mentioned in the exam report, the functions of the hormones of the menstrual cycle were not well known. So this is a weak area of the, and we know as examiners and teachers. So the main function of which hormone is to maintain the uterus lining after ovulation. You remember after ovulation what happens? This is the ovary, and then when the ovum is released, now this is the Graafian follicle, and inside this we have the ovum, and when that is released, you've got to understand is when the the remains of the Graafian follicle and this ovum is released into the oviduct. Now what remains behind is called the corpus luteum, and this of course results in the production of progesterone, and this maintains the uterus lining after ovulation. Before ovulation it's estrogen, after ovulation it's progesterone, because after ovulation what remains behind is the corpus luteum, and the corpus luteum keeps on producing, in fact doesn't keep on, starts producing progesterone, and the progesterone level rises immediately after ovulation from day 14 in which ovulation takes place. Now question 38, which row in the table is correct? Chromosome in mother's ovum is the female gamete, so that is only X, 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 X. The C was totally wrong. Then chromosomes in the father's sperm, X. Yeah, if it's XX, then the sex of the baby would be a female, it can't be a male. If it was XY, then it would be a male, so this was correct. X and Y again, female wrong, X and Y female wrong. So X and Y, if in the zygotes is X and Y, it's going to be a male child. If it is going to be X and X, that's going to be a female child. So at the fertilization, the gender of the fetus is decided, and what it will develop into, that is decided at the point of fertilization. Okay, coming on to question number 39. The diagram shows the inheritance of the allele big E for polydactyly, having extra fingers, which is dominant over the normal allele, which is a small e. So let's look at all the normal people. The normal people are all the ones which are the white boxes. Let's shade that blue. So why am I talking of the normal now? Whenever I've told you to do the genetics questions, I've always told you is first write down what is the recessive trait. Now you look at this, this becomes very easy. Now whatever is the recessive trait are the people are the ones which I've shaded in blue. So that means this is E and E, this is E and E. So all their bachas, this is their kid, a boy, girl, boy. All of them are small e, small e. Now these of course, what is M going to be? M could be this. No, but they have a child who is small e, small e. They have two children, small e, small e. These are also small e, small. So first of all, write all the ones who are recessive. Now it becomes very easy. You see, you've got to figure this out. It's very easy because M has to be big E, small e. Why has it got to be big E, small e? Why has it got to be big E, small e? Because N is big, small e, and they have a child, small e, small e. So one small e has to come from here, and one small e has to come from here, from one parent. So this is how you have to understand. So what are the genotypes of person M and N? So the person M has to be big E, small e, and N has to be small e, small e. I hope that makes sense, that you have to first write down the recessive characteristic. which was the normal, was the recessive. So they were all these. So you have to first write down the recessive and then you go back, because if a child is recessive and one parent is this, the other parent has to be this, because one small e from here and one small e from here. But look at the other way where you get this wrong. If you say that this is homozygous, then how is the child this small e small e? So this has to be small e, because one parent has given it a small e and the other parent has given it a small e. That is why the couple M and N have a normal child, which is small e small e. Then coming to the last question, which is question number 40. Bacteria can be genetically engineered to produce human insulin by adding a human insulin gene into the bacterial DNA. What is an advantage of this procedure? The bacteria do not need a source of glucose. Rubbish. The bacteria grow faster. No. The insulin does not need to be purified. No. The insulin is unlikely to cause an immune response when injected into a patient. You see, previously to this, we used to use cow's insulin or pig's insulin, and we all had issues on that because somebody could be allergic to it. And of course, there were religious and ethical issues as well. So it doesn't, but of course, that's a separate story. But immune response means, like, some people are allergic to eggs, some people are like I'm allergic to mangoes, so I develop a rash. So this insulin from other animals could result in some sort of people developing allergies, which is called the immune response. So is unlikely to cause. Why? Because this is the human DNA which has been put into a bacteria and we're getting human insulin. So that completes this paper, and I hope this has been a helpful exercise. Please go through it before you listen to this video, and then of course you can understand why the answers are what the answers are. And thank you once again and all the very best.